N64. Now this thing right here had a really good variety of platforming games. And man, some of these were the very first games I ever sunk a lot of time into. For most people these days, that would probably be like an Elder Scrolls game or something similar, but for me, it was Donkey Kong 64. That is my real playtime from when I was a kid right there. Yeah, I know, bananas, but I think it was mostly just me leaving the game on and just hanging out in the game's world, you know? I mean, this was the first machine that could really take me somewhere different. From Princess Peach's castle, to the Glade of Dreams, to Spiral Mountain and Silicon Valley. This thing offered so many 3D platformers that all had their own unique worlds that were ready to be explored. Back then, just open spaces were an exciting new thing, and so much so that I'm not even sure that people realized they were still even making 2D games on N64. Mostly fighters and mostly puzzle games, but there was a pretty wicked platformer. It's kind of easy to forget since, 2D games were way more of a PlayStation thing at the time, but one of the most beloved platformers on N64 was actually a 2D side-scroller. It was a game called Mischief Makers, and it was by a developer called Treasure. And I tell you, that is just so freaking fitting, because all of their games kind of do feel like buried treasure, you know? God, look at that cover art. That is so sick. Just classic 90s-ass CG render right there. Back when the American covers all focused on showcasing the impressive 3D technology, and the Japanese covers focused on looking good. And hey, don't get me wrong, I still love my classic retro chunky 3D renders. It's just that, no, it's just nothing. What am I talking about? I'm glad they had this disconnect. It just means that we got more cool artwork in the long run. And besides, people emulate old 3D looks deliberately now. I can't pretend that this isn't cool art too. Either way, it's an incredibly memorable cover, and I know that personally. I never forgot what this thing looked like. When I was a little kid, I saw this on the shelf at Blockbuster back in the ye old days of renting cartridges, and everything about it grabbed me. Unlike anything else that was there, just the expressiveness, the stark pose, and the colors and angles, I just had to stare at it, at least for a little bit. I'm not entirely sure why I didn't rent it. I probably saw it was a 2D game. Yeah, I think I looked at the back of it, and it just wasn't what I was looking for, because, back in the 90s, you bought the N64 to play these new 3D games, and I just played Mario 64. I wanted to see what other, worlds I could look around. So I think it just wasn't what I was looking for. But I always regretted not trying it because I would just keep thinking about it. It was like, what was that weird game I saw? I kept thinking about the cover. I kept thinking about the weird character designs I saw in the front and the back. It was like, what was that game? But unfortunately, I never really got the chance to rent games often enough to ever go back and give it a shot. Eventually, I did try it in high school, but I played it on an emulator and it was like super broken and it didn't look right. And I took like 4 steps. I was like, this is broken. I can't play this. And then I just never touched it since, not for any particular reason. It just kind of became one of those bucket list games that, I knew I would get to it eventually. And hey, eventually is now, I guess. I know someone who did rent this game as a kid, though. My friend Brandon told me that when he was a little kid and this game was new, he rented it because he liked the character on the cover. And he told me that he brought it home, puts it in, and it was like a bad dream. He says that there's this face, this horrible face on everything, like every block, every character, every object, every random thing, even the houses, like every house was just covered in these horrible, terrifying faces, just conveying pain and anguish and suffering. And he said it was terrifying to him as a kid. And that's all I really know about this game. So why don't we plonk it in and give it a shot? So, more about Treasure. That's a logo you want to see. Every game you see the Treasure logo on, it is guaranteed to be a little different, a little interesting. I played the side-scroller for the PS1 by them a while back when I was just browsing stuff. I threw in the PS1 Classic. You played as this little witch character, and you switch sides to change color, and there was mechanics revolving around that. What the hell was it thing? That was Silhouette Mirage. Silhouette Mirage, that's what it was. Hope you don't want to copy that game. They've made a lot of really cool and cute stuff. I'm sure a lot of people know Gunstar Heroes on Genesis. Stretch Panic is also something I've always wanted to try. They made Bang.io, that shmup game with the cutesy anime characters. Ikaruga as well, that was on Dreamcast and GameCube, and they've even made a couple of games for Nintendo too. They haven't made anything in forever. I don't even know if they're still around anymore, but they were a golden example of those quirky Japanese studios that we used to have populating the video game industry with all sorts of wicked and weird stuff. Like, of course, Mischief Makers. We start off with this little anime intro, and this would have been nuts seeing this on N64 back in the day. The Super Nintendo never had sprites like this, and linking them all together into this little intro really freaking cool. And yeah, we got all the villains whizzing by, showing them off. Big evil mustache, must be the main villain. Hearty old laugh. What the hell is... the hell is that thing? Oh, ew, what are those? Who are these? Oh, yeah, get them out of here. I don't want to see that little, whoa. Holy shit.
Mischief Makers.
Why is the title screen music, like, way too amazing? It feels like I'm approaching the great robot shrine of ancient Malarkey. I've never heard MIDI stuff sound quite like this, wow. A quick little fun fact, in Japan, the game is called UK Troublemakers, so instead, in that version, the title screen's all like... Trouble to Maker Suit. Oh my, I've actually never booted this cartridge before. Looks like it was well loved. I love that is the one that they put all the time into. I'm leaving that there. Bye-bye, Skippy. It's James's file now. M or F? Well, I'm a gamer, so M for Mario. I don't know why you need my age, though. I don't know what that has to do with anything. I'm 29 right now. Okay. Oh, wow. That's a wicked transition. Man, I'm bored. I came to visit the planet of Clancer, and I can't go out. Why can't you go out, Professor Doctor? Marina told me to stay in the spaceship until she's done from scouting. So the story follows this scientist and his guardian robot companion that he built, Marina, who we know from the cover, and they're visiting an alien planet called Clancer. Things go very wrong very quickly, though, when some Clancers, which are the aliens that live there, storm the ship and take his ass away. What's this guy army crawling for? How's that help? Everyone's going, you're still here doing this. Then we have this level select screen. Okay, we just got a 1-1, meet Marina. We open with the Clancers flying off with the professor. We were ordered to take you to our emperor. That's all we know. But what I do know is that you'll have a horrible time with us. Get ready to cry and scream. Help me, Marina! And there we are, Marina, the Ultra Intergalactic Cybot G. And you're the people who kidnapped my prof. This guy's like, no, we didn't do that. All the Clancers just look exactly the same. But don't get it twisted. There's ones that work for the Empire, and then there's just the normal ones that want to live peacefully. Like this guy. Oh my god, even the blocks have the same face. Jesus Christ. I see what Brandon was talking about now. This is horrific. Like, it really reminds me of the Uboa face from Yume Nikki. It's just it's just sad. It just conveys like sadness, anguish, pain. I almost wonder if it's supposed to be like riffing on Super Mario or something. You know how the clouds and the hills and stuff, they all have these happy little faces. It almost feels like one of these developers was playing Mario 3 or Mario World or something. They were like, you know what'd be funny? It'd be funny if all these faces were expressing abject terror instead. Oh my god, even the flowers. Even the butterflies. Talk about like gray goo ego, you know, oh, scary. Control stick doesn't do nothing at all in this game. What? How am I supposed to hold this controller? Since we were just escaping the second dimension for the very first time, the N64 controller was designed with both 2D and 3D games in mind. Just not in the modern sense where your hands still have access to the whole controller at once. Rather, it was intended to have different modes for different games.
Modes change.
And I see why people get confused by this though, because in the grand scheme of things, there weren't very many games that used this grip style, and it didn't help that popular games like Zelda would like put the map on the L button, making you think like, wait, what, huh? Am I supposed to be able to reach that? I grew up with a number of 2D games on N64 that all use the D-pad, so I guess I had the context to be like, oh, I see what's going on here, but if you never had a game like that, you'd probably always wonder why there is this mostly unused D-pad island over there. Games like Mischief Makers is why. The movement is locked to a 2D plane, so all we really need are the 8 trusty directions of a D-pad. So of course, you can press the A button to do a jump. It's just a singular jump. You can't press the A button again to double jump or anything like that. No, instead, Instead, the movement options are explored further by the C buttons. Tap one of these bright yellow guys, and Marina's gonna do a short dash in that direction. Very cool. Now, you can't hold the button to keep jetting forever, but you can mash the button to keep boosting over and over. Doing this, you can really fly through the air, which is really fun. Boosting upwards, it doesn't fly away or anything, but it does let you add an extra little chunk of height to any jump. You can also use it to hover in place, which is super helpful. This way you can have an extra second or two to think of what to do in mid-jump. You can also dash downwards, very helpful for speeding up those drops anytime you need to make haste. It's a very cool control style, and I really love how much the game actually gets out of it. None of these directions feels at all wasted. The game is always making good use out of all 4 of these buttons. You can also do the dashes by double tapping the D-pad, but I kinda wish you couldn't because it happens by accident a lot, and sometimes it even gets me hurt. And besides, having every direction conveniently mapped to its own button is really freaking cool. I haven't really played anything else that really feels like this, controlling it. It's just so unique. It kind of feels like they picked up the controller and they close their eyes. And they start tapping the buttons and it's like, okay, you know, if these aren't doing anything with the camera, what is this doing for our character? And you kind of tap it out and I don't know, you kind of feel the light bulbs going off in their head, and that really is the magic of the N64 controller, is that these were always meant to be camera buttons, in the same way that like a right stick is for now usually, but you didn't have to use it for that. You could do a lot of other cool things with having like a buttons version of the right stick. You know, if you're tapping the stick for the jet direction, it wouldn't really feel quite as snappy and precise as just tapping the buttons, so you know, say what you will about the N64 controller, but the layout did lead to some cool stuff sometimes. As for other movement options, Marina also has a sliding kick that you can do by crouching and pressing A. Jumping out of this will have Marina go way higher than usual, so it's really good for getting up to out-of-the-way areas. It's pretty much just the slide jump from Crash Bandicoot, if you've played that, I guess. Just in 2D, of course, which is a much more interesting option than a boring double jump would have been. I like it when the moves require a little bit of deliberacy. I find that always makes executing a move way more engaging, so yeah, having to worry about the space a little bit, I do like that a lot. There's a slight physics aspect to the jump as well. Jumping up and jetting, it'll have different results depending on your timing. You really have to jump up into it if you want to get the most height. So that's what we got for moving moves. As for other moves, like action moves, we only have one. And the entire game revolves all around it. The B button. This guy is going to have Marina grapple whatever is in front of her. This could be a piece of the environment you want to climb, this could be an enemy, or it could just be something you want to pick up and carry around. There's a lot of things you can do with this grab move. It's really impressive, honestly. Where do I even begin? Clan balls, I guess. Yeah, let's start with clan balls. That's what these things are called. I think everything with the clan surface has the same prefix. I don't know why, but anyway, these things are a major component of the gameplay. They're everywhere. They're as frequent as blocks in a Mario game. And like blocks, they're for a lot of different things, but mostly for getting around. Grab one, hold a direction, and simply tap B again. You'll pop off, grab the next, rinse and repeat, and you're popping and bopping around the stage. There's also ones that ride on tracks, ones that rotate and stretch when you dash while holding them. Some of them are switches, some will spawn things like a bomb you need for a puzzle or an item or something. They always seem to have some random function. Now, the way you interact with stuff is probably one of the more well-known things about this game. The way you do that is by grabbing hold of it and giving it a good shake.
Shake, shake.
Double tap C down, and Marina's gonna give that thing a good rustle, knocking out whatever item is inside or triggering whatever mechanism it's connected to. It's basically how you interact with everything in the game, other than like talking to people. That you do with the shoulder buttons? Yeah, it's a weird choice. I don't know any other games where you advance dialogue with R and L. You also skip cutscenes with a Z button. That's another weird one. I didn't even find that until halfway through. It all makes sense though, the rest of the controller's all used up, so that's all you kinda got left. The game tries to encourage you to shake everything you see, so there's all these little hidden things you can find or make something do. For example, if you have a missile launcher, you're firing missiles, shake it and they'll all turn into homing missiles. During this boss fight, you can catch rockets and throw them back at him, but if you think to shake the rocket, it'll make them bigger and stronger. It's this extra little thing where if you think to do it, you just might find something cool. You can also use the grapple to pick up and throw just about anything. Bombs, boomerangs, clancers. You can just knock the shit out of these guys for no reason. They're not even bad guys, I'm just being mean. Some Clancers are enemies though. They'll usually be wearing a hat and will come to attack you. Deal with them by grabbing them and chucking them around, into the ground, into lava, into other Clancers, whatever you want, just grab and throw. It's kind of awesome. It feels like they made an entire game out of Suplex Kirby. It just doesn't get old. I don't know why, like something about grabbing these poor guys and hurling them around at each other. I don't know if it's the sound effects or the feeling of weight behind each throw, but it's really satisfying. Very silly too. It's also really interesting how we're shown how to fight through a boss, instead of giving us a regular enemy to try like a game usually would. But I guess since it all revolves around grappling, it makes total sense to teach us using a single large character, instead of throwing a bunch of little guys at us. And if you want to make clobbering them Clancers even more interesting, sometimes you can find a weapon to fire at them. I love this idea of things being in your hands, like sometimes just holding on to something can change the gameplay, whether it be changing the way you attack enemies, or even changing the way you get around the stage. Maybe you'll grab a spring Clancer to bounce around a level, or maybe you'll grab onto a tricycle and hit those ramps. And that just about covers the whole controls. It's all about jetting, grabbing, and throwing. Very, very fun. It's so simple, but I think they got two actions that bounce off of each other really well is why. And on top of having very snappy and precise controls, the camera is also really good at tracking your character. Feels like it's always pushed out in the direction that I actually want to see, whether it's up or right or left or anywhere. Though with how much it can fling all around, I wouldn't blame somebody for finding it a little bit nauseating sometimes. Alright, so the objective of each level is to find the warp star at the end. Sometimes you'll do that just by scrolling through, platforming through the level left to right, just like any old side-scroller, but sometimes you might have to navigate something a little bit more tricky, or maybe you'll have to solve some puzzles, defeat some enemies, or maybe you'll even have to fulfill some sort of story-based objective. Like this level here. This lady lost her kids, you gotta track them down, chase them around, come here you little shit, scoop them up, bring them all back, and once you're done, you get a delicious warp gate sandwich. This one here has Terran greeting you. He's a Clancer with a little ball cap, and he reveals that if you shake him, he can transform into his alter ego, Blockman. The controls on this guy are really neat. It's all about nudging him in different ways, boosting in different directions to get different results, and doing different combinations, getting all these little different movements. It is so cool. As like a one-off stage gimmick, this is cool as shit. In some of the later levels, you'll even play as Terran in his normal form. He has a totally different moveset. It's less about fighting and more about spamming jumps and gliding through the level with ease. Oh, I like that slide kick too, that's pretty good. This next level has a giant worm intruding on Terran's sister's garden. Slap him around until he blows up and you're the winner. Next one has you and the gang fighting off hordes of Clancers, and then the next one after that is this platforming stage where you have to find a bomb and then blow up the wall blocking your way. So yeah, first world is all pretty basic stuff, but the second world is where things really start getting cool. We start off by navigating a volcanic temple, dodging blasts of fire, grappling through the obstacles, and squeezing through these tight vents as we carefully time our movement. This next one is wicked cool. You're ascending up a vertical climb, this tall tower, try not to fall. And I love this puzzle at the end using these chain reaction blocks. They're kind of like the ones in Kirby where you hit a bomb and then you follow the path of blocks. They're sort of like that, but there's a little bit more to it. You got these switches that'll reset the room, so you have to time the blast with the reset to reverse the reaction, and then you can climb up, but then still get past the wall. Now, the reaction is happening off screen, obviously, so you kind of have to contextualize the way things function. Well, if things are blowing up, and then you recreate them all while the explosion's still happening, that puts an explosion up there, and then it comes backwards. It made me feel like a genius. This one here I really love a lot too. You have to outrun this big torrent of fire that's destroying the entire stage's footing behind you. You're clambering through, hopping from platform to platform, and even timing the destruction to get past certain walls and stuff too. This one has us riding another one of these things. These things are so genius, dude. Like, you remember how boring auto-scrollers in Mario games can be sometimes? Well, here they found out how to make a version of the moving platform that you actually still have some control over. This one here is all about these platforms that can get weighed down into the lava, so you can't let the enemies pile up or else you're gonna lose your footing. That's so cool. They're always finding so many new ideas to go along with this whole grab mechanic. They even reused that whole weight mechanic in this level here. You have to weigh down either end of a missile to steer it through the air. I mean, talk about using the whole buffalo, dude. If they introduce an idea or a mechanic here in this game, you better believe that you're not just gonna see it one time. They will use it in a whole bunch of cool ways throughout the entire thing. The clan pod is a really great example of this too. It's this item they introduce a little bit later on where you can store a bunch of stuff in it, carry it around, and pull it all out later. So you can use it to haul around any items you might need throughout the level. But the real trick to this thing is how you can shake up what's inside to mix it all together. You can combine stuff into helpful but optional items like boomerangs and stuff, or maybe you'll combine a bunch of little grenades into a big bomb that you'll need to progress. Probably my favorite clan pot puzzle was this place right here. You have to figure out what to do in each screen to make progress. The first one's pretty easy. You have to just match the pictures, you know, bring the two objects together, warp gate appears, and you go to the next one. But here you have to somehow get a bomb over this really tall wall, which, like, you can't do that. You can't use the clan balls here while holding something, and you also can't throw it over because it would just blow up. So what do? You put it in the clan pod and throw that over. It's almost like they made a puzzle out of, like, how you would throw your backpack over a fence as a kid. This level here has us navigating a big maze looking for all of these little ghosts. It's just that instead of a vacuum, we got a clan pot. Oh, I love the way you have to exchange it through this wall right here, the way you put it down, roll under, and then go over and grab it again. God, this game sure loves mazes. There's another one here where you have to warp all around and find your way through it. You'll have to keep track of all these big numbers, and even what color they are too, to figure out where you are and which warp gate to head through next. There's another one later on where you have to fight a bunch of mini-bosses throughout the maze. It's pretty fun, they're fun fights, but I kinda wish they didn't repeat as much as they do. Now, there are some levels that don't really have any action at all, or puzzle solving either. You just kind of walk around a town and talk to people. Almost ends up feeling like a Diet Paper Mario chapter or something. This game is just totally unafraid to have a level that's entirely about the silly writing instead. This one here is really funny. It's all about this big hotel on the way to the funny games or whatever. But the hotel is really shitty, so every clancer you talk to along the way, they just whine about how much they hate it here, and then they go to the manager to complain about it. I'm not even joking, that's the whole level. It all leads up to this next level, which is a track and field contest. The professor is the prize, so I guess we have to play the games and win fair and square. There's a 100-meter dash, a high jump, even some mathematical brain games. This 100-meter dash, though, it was kicking my ass at first. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I just kept trying over and over, and I would lose every time. I'm mashing the button as fast as I can. What else can I even do? Well, it turns out that for some reason mashing the D-pad makes you go a lot faster than mashing the C buttons. I don't know why, but once I did that, then it was pitifully easy. This is the only level where a story-focused thing is more of like a minigame collection. Otherwise, you're really just walking and talking to people, and I guess it does make the game a little bit slow going towards the beginning. I mean, the first handful of levels are really just doing that, but I feel like that really works. I feel like that is a very smart choice. And it's because this game is just so absurd looking. I feel like if you were trying to learn the game mechanics before you even really understood what you were even looking at, that might have been a little confusing or overwhelming. So I don't know, I think it makes total sense to give you more lax opening chapters to allow the weirdness to settle in. Let the absurdity become a little more readable before the game's actually asking you to do things with all this weird stuff. It is a pretty bizarre looking game after all. Ooh, check this stuff out. Oh yeah, this is where the 3D effects really start to shine. The stone platforms and the way the camera's wrapping around them as they go by, it's so freaking cool looking. It almost feels like they took the parallax scroll kind of look from Super Nintendo, but they went absolutely nuts with it, trying new things you couldn't do before. I actually really love the way this game looks. It has a little bit of that old, uncanny, like pseudo 3D look where the sprites look based on 3D models, and it also has that tweened kind of sprite look where they move the individual parts of the character. And while this can sometimes look and feel kinda cheap, Mischief Makers is really smart with it. Like, it's done purposefully to create a certain game feeling. I mean, it's a game about grabbing and throwing things and the sprites being knocked around all the time, so it makes total sense to make everything feel all bouncy and ragdolly. And that's a really big part of why the gameplay feels so satisfying. It's a really good reminder of how it's all down to the execution. Not only did they make sure to have character designs that translate into this really well, but they also have a lot of animation to go along with the movement. It all feels really fluid and natural. Just take this dragon boss early on, for example. This is such an incredible example of this. The entire fight is just nuts. Like, look at all of these expressions on his face and the way he telegraphs the attacks with all of this body language. But the best part is the way you catch the punches and throw them right back at him. Man, like, having every body part being its own separately animated thing, it creates a fight that feels like we're really physically interacting with pieces of the character, instead of just feeling like we're doing damage to the entire sprite as a whole. And on top of that, there's just so much potential for aspects of puzzle with this. For example, the dragon boss, the wizard will keep healing him, so you have to think to knock him out with the punches first. God, that lightning ball he throws at you, that's pretty hard to dodge, but once you get him out of here, it's an all-out flurry of blocking punches. Keep an eye on his face, that's how you're gonna tell when he's gonna fumble. Ah shit, I missed the timing. It's not easy, but this is the fight that's gonna take that muscle memory and lock it in. After this fight, the controls like weirdly felt better to me, but I think it was really me like learning the positioning a little better, learning how to connect the grabs more consistently. So if you struggle with this fight, don't get discouraged. This is the part of the game that's going to teach your muscles how to respond. And once you beat it, you're gonna feel it. Every single major boss fight has this ridiculous energy to it. The flashy backgrounds, the bouncy sprites, the way you catch things and throw them back, all the while dodging an onslaught of attacks from all these different weapons. They are incredibly fun boss fights. The sense of scale and space these fights provide. Sometimes they're in the background firing stuff at you in the foreground. Sometimes half of the boss is back there while you fight the other half in the foreground. Sometimes you're flying at Mach speed or running at Mach speed. You'll mostly attack these bosses by catching stuff and throwing it back, but there's also all of these little openings to perform a grapple. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of Punch-Out a little bit, the way that certain animations have those opportunities to do a more effective strategy. For example, this guy here, when he enters his upright mech phase, you can sometimes grab his foot. Once you have it, then dash away to pull his legs out from underneath him. It'll knock him over. From there, pull up and slam it down right into him. Is that cool or what? Now, the smaller bosses I was significantly less impressed by. The big guys are a great hearty challenge full of excitement and stuff, but every minor boss feels kind of pointless. You just grab them and throw them over and over, and that's it. I mean, you have so much health that you're not realistically going to lose. They hardly even qualify as bosses, honestly. It feels more like I'm whacking two toys together until one of them blows up. Every single boss has an incredible explosion whenever you beat it. I don't know why. Very good question. It is a pretty great cherry on top of that cake, though. I gotta say that much. Okay, one more. There we go. Yeah, take that, and boom, shakalaka. Holy shit, Marina should play basketball. I mean, it makes more sense than Mega Man Soccer did. And you gotta love the little visual touches that the N64 brings to the table here. I never really considered how the N64's motion blur could be used on 2D sprites. Like, usually you see this in 3D games that convey like haziness or confusion, but I never really thought about it adding a sense of momentum to a 2D game. Oh, those shaking effects though, whenever there's an earthquake and you gotta run through the level, it can be a little bit much. But you really have to appreciate the way they use the N64 here. This game could never have been on Super Nintendo. Anybody that actually gave this thing the time of day back then, they could easily have seen how much of the N64's power was really being taken advantage of here. It truly was a next-gen game. It was just pushing and polishing what we already had, instead of charting totally new ground like everybody else was doing on N64, and let's be real, that had very mixed results. So staying in 2D, that was something more people should have been doing. It's just so full of style and personality. I mean, look here in the level select. They can't just tell you the name of the level. No, they have to have a little microphone guy down there saying it to you. This really is one of those special cases where the same amount of love and effort, they put it into both the style and the substance. It gives the game such a strong identity in both means of gameplay and presentation. I really don't think this game would be what it is if it wasn't for such a clever combination of both. And while there isn't really a whole lot to the game's story, you can still tell that a lot of love went into that too. It's a lot less about having like a super concise plot and way more about all the laughs and the silly writing. It really does feel like a goofy 80s or 90s anime that just does not take itself seriously at all. It's kind of like watching a whole bunch of episodes of Samurai Pizza Cats or something like that. I mean, the entire reason all these dudes are trying to kill you is because they're just gullible enough to believe that you're the bad guy. It's like, yes guys, just listen to the most evil looking guy in the game. I'm sure he's right. There's a pretty good running joke where all of these idiots just cannot listen to any plan at all, and they always just want to skip straight to fighting Marina. The terrible communication skills lead to some pretty funny moments. That's how the professor ended up being the prize of the track and field, and that's also why Marina was allowed to compete? Like, wait, yeah, why would they let us do that? Well, I mean, that's what they thought he wanted. It's quite the cast of lovable bozos here. I especially love all the stupid little voice lines they have during the boss fights.
How could I lose to you?
To punish evil forces, I have been charged.
I live to fight! Cerberus Alpha!
Cerberus Alpha! It really does sound like that old iconic era of English anime voice acting, like from Digimon or Metabots or something. Back when it's like, oh, I guess we need a voice for that guy, and then somebody's like, this is the voice for that guy! And it's like, no, you're right, that's the voice for that guy. There's all kinds of iconic sound bites here. I mean, the obvious shake shake, but I really like the professor crying out for help.
Help me, Marina!
There's another running gag where every single time we save this guy, he immediately just gets kidnapped again. But not before we chuck his ass into the stratosphere. Every time you rescue him, he gets all grabby, oh, just everyone's favorite anime trope. I mean, I guess it would have been pretty funny if that's the reason we had to keep rescuing him, because we keep chucking him away for being a weirdo. It's like, why do we even keep rescuing this idiot? But no, instead they just cut back to him home before the Clancers take him again. I don't know, wasted opportunity for a better version of the running gag, if you ask me. So, after saving the professor over and over and over, knocking out another one of those henchmen each and every time, we then come to the fifth and final world. And it is a total action fest. Well, I guess we're entering the spoiler zone now. I'm gonna be talking about the final world real quick, followed by the final boss and the ending, and then I'm gonna go over all the post-game stuff, getting the secret ending and what exactly that entails. Now, you can skip here to avoid seeing any more of the game and just, not see any of that, just hear my final thoughts and conclusion, but there is gonna be some absolute malarkey in the post-game you will be missing if you do that, so I don't know, skip here for the funny post-game bits, and then I'll let you skip again before I show you the ending or whatever. But otherwise, if you don't care about any of that and you just want to see all of it, then stay with me, my friend, and I'll show it to you. World 5 starts off with an all-out Clancer war. You got these dystopic industrial streets completely littered with militaristic Lancers as far as the eye can see. Grab them, chuck them, smash them into each other, blow them all up, and make your way to the end. Then we have a high-speed mini-boss where we ride an ostrich and dodge lasers. And after that, we're riding the B-boss from the second world. This had my brain going straight to Rayman. You know how you beat the mosquito boss and then you ride on him for the next level. I couldn't help but to wonder if that was the inspiration for this. After a brief fight with Mirko, we're then plopped into the final side-scrolling stage. And, okay, if I'm being honest, it's kind of whatever for a last level. The first room is pretty fun. You gotta hit all the switches and use the warp gates to teleport back and forth, trying to figure out how we can get a bomb to blow up these blocks. It's a pretty fun puzzle room. But after that, it's just like a pitifully easy mini-boss and then a casual walk forward with nothing in your way. It's not exactly the exciting final challenge I was kind of hoping for, but I don't know. I guess at least the set piece is pretty cool. All the dark clouds rolling by. Looks the part. Next up, we have a rematch with Mirko. I showed this one earlier in the video. It's pretty fun. You gotta rip the weapons out of his hand and then throw them back at him, all the while dodging that giant drill mech thing. Really great fight, but it is weirdly short compared to the others. The moment you hit the second phase, all you have to do is grab a missile. Once you do that, you literally just win. Okay, final boss time. Turns out Big Evil Mustache, he was the professor's brother, Leo. The professor's name is Theo, so it's Theo and Leo. This space ain't big enough for the number twos of us. Leo explains that he wants power, and lots of it. He wants to control the whole damn world. Like I said, the story's pretty simple, so it's not like the villain has a super complicated motivation or anything. One tidbit here that is pretty cool, though, is learning that these henchmen were actually heroes from space responding to Planet Clancer's SOS signal. But after they arrived, I guess Leo, brainwashed them or something and got them all to work for him. Pretty soon, we find ourselves fighting the big obelisk from the background. Inner Struggle is the name of this fight, so I think it's supposed to be, taking place inside Marina's computer brain or something like that, as if the big digital obelisk, this is what influenced the minds of the other robots, and now they're going for us too. During the fight, you'll see all these words floating up by, representing all these different negative emotions, so grab one and shake it up into a better emotion, and then fire it right back at them. Now that's the power of the will, my friends. It's a really cool fight visually, but it's not all that challenging. The attacks are pretty easy to dodge, and figuring out what to do, that wasn't all that hard. I've lost. That's why I don't like justice. My dream was to be destroyed by my brother. Why did you have to defeat me, Marina? Well, if I'm going to go, I'm taking you all with me. Oh, the classic move. Leo pops off a frickin' spirit bomb, but then Theo jumps in the way to protect Marina. As if it wouldn't have been a much better idea for your super-duper cyborg to take the hit, but I guess it's the thought that counts. The professor's dying! We then get some silly-ass melodrama between Marina and the professor. He's just trying to be dramatic, but he's really fine. And then we move to the final fight! For real this time. Free of Theo's control, these three knuckleheads still want a fair fight with Marina, so they combine their mechs into a giant Gundam! And then we get this ridiculous final battle. And it's a damn fun fight too. Way more challenging and fun than the previous one. So many attacks that are a blast to dodge, and the way you catch the rocket fist before timing your aim and sending it right back. Oh my god, and the way you grab his feet when he's trying to stomp on you and you throw him right upside down. Oh my god, they really saved the most satisfying grapples for the final battle, and that is just awesome. This attack is really fun when he goes in the background and fires his chest laser into the foreground and you gotta scramble around the screen to dodge it. Oh boy, I gotta say, Mischief Makers has a fan-freaking-tastic final fight. I freaking love this boss. After we're done with the final battle, we then unlock one final stage, simply titled Ending. It's basically this long and drawn-out cutscene where the Clancers are celebrating their victory over the Empire, and we also get some drama surrounding Terran truly being Blockman and not actually being related to his sister, and how she accepts him for being her true brother, even still something, I don't know. It kind of feels like contrived drama, but it's fun all the same. But the real peculiar thing about this ending is that it only goes to as long as you still have gold gems remaining. Yeah, see that counter up there, the top left. You'll notice that is slowly ticking down as the cutscene goes on. If that number reaches 0, it just abruptly ends. Fade to black, cutscene over. Sorry, dickhead, you only get to see the first half. Go get the rest of the gems, then you can see it all. Just for testing's sake, I had to come back with just a handful of more gems, and yeah, you get to see more of the cutscene, but it still just abruptly ends the moment it hits 0. It is really cool how they just straight up don't tell you it's happening, though. You just have to kind of connect the dots yourself and realize, oh my god, the more gold gems I get, the more of this scene I get to see. And then you have this realization that you only need 29 of the 52 total gems to clear the scene and get to those credits. But then the credits cut you off, which begs the question, well then what's on the other side of these credits? If I can get more gems and keep it going, well then there has to be something over there, right? And they do stick a version of the credits that you can see anyway in the level select, but I feel like that's just so people can just see credits, feel like they actually beat the game. Those credits don't have anything at the end of them though, and this timer really makes me feel like we're going to see a secret scene at the end. Well, shit, I guess I gotta head back and grab the rest of these, don't I? Okay, so there's basically one of these hidden in every single level, and most of them aren't that hard to get. They're not too hard to find, not too hard to grab. Oh my god, but some of these are a pain in the entire ass, and I'm talking cheek-to-cheek carnage, dude. For the main boss fights, you gotta beat them all without getting hit once. And that's not easy to do. The final boss was a pretty tough cookie for this. The problem was that at a point, he stops doing these stomp attacks, so you have to wait for him to launch a hand missile in order to retaliate. But it felt like the fight would go on forever, and he would rarely ever do it. The trick is that it depends on what side of him you're on after he uses the laser. I kept dodging to the left, triggering the laser blast and the kick attacks, but if you end up on his right, then he uses the rocket punch. I figured this out because eventually I realized that each different side of him has a different weapon, and he would always use that side's weapon if I was on that side. Pretty fun to figure out, actually. So as difficult as it may be getting through a boss fight without taking any damage, there are usually a couple of things you can figure out to make the fight quite a bit easier. The Cerberus Alpha fight, for example, the missiles you catch, you can shake them to make them bigger and stronger, cutting down the amount of time you have to survive for by quite a bit. Also, whenever he transforms to the second phase, I would almost every time get hit. But eventually I found out you can just go to the top right of the screen. That always works. This was probably the hardest one to pull off. It definitely took me the longest, though they all took me a long time. Pretty much every one took me about an hour of trying. Yet, I never really found myself getting impatient with it because the patterns here, they're just so much fun to learn how to dodge and get through, tackling it over and over and getting better at it bit by bit. Like, I was dying again and again and again, but I was having so much fun with it that I just couldn't really get that frustrated. The dragon boss is nowhere near as hard after enough practice. You can even knock out the little wizard guy before he can fire a single shot. If you stand underneath the dragon's fist, you can sometimes prompt another attack right away. It doesn't always work, but it's really handy when you get it to. This guy took me a little bit. It's not as long as the other fights, as I said before, but this first phase is pretty annoying. Dashing downwards while you're trying to rip his weapons from his hands, that is essential because this drill kept hitting me and ruining my run. Hit him with his own stuff twice, and then the rest isn't too hard. Those were all the standout fights that took me forever to get through, but I really wanted to get all the no damage stuff out of the way first, because obviously that's going to be the hardest stuff, so the rest from now on should be smooth sailing, right? Not entirely. Alright, so most of these aren't that hard to find. They'll either be in an out-of-the-way area that you can just find by exploring, or maybe you'll have to bring a bomb to open a path to get to one, and maybe you'll have to simply shake it out of a peculiar-looking enemy. But other times, you might have to complete some sort of hidden objective in the stage. Like this one here, back here where we have to hurt up those kids. Once you get them all, she'll also mention that her husband is still missing. This is our hint that there's still something to find in the stage, so if we walk past that warp gate and head back out, we'll notice the camera way over here now shows a little bit more level. Figure it out, grab the dad, bring his ass home, and... Wait, I didn't even get the gem? I didn't get the gem. Yeah, some of them are a little bit picky about what exactly you have to do. It's not enough to just rescue the dad. No, you also have to think to shake the gem out of him before you end the level. Don't forget to shake everything, guys. You'll end up doing the level over. Some levels you'll have to find a hidden point that's beyond the goal. Like here, if you think to keep riding the missile past it, you'll find a hidden area up here with it. This one's pretty cool. You have to experiment with the clan pot to find it. Combine 6 blue gems to make a green gem, combine 6 more blue gems to get a second green gem, and then combine those 2 green gems, and you got it in the bag like a grocery. Now, while the gem hunting can be pretty fun, I can also easily see people growing frustrated with it because some of these are not very easy to find at all. And I don't think there's always really good hints about where to find it or where to even begin looking. For example, this one here, you literally get it just by shaking the boss over and over again until it eventually appears. Which I guess that is the only thing you can really do here after you try everything else, I guess, but it takes so long that it's really easy to think, no, this isn't working, this can't be it. And that was my precise reaction. I thought to shake him over and over, and it just wasn't coming out of him, so I thought, okay, I gotta look this up. And they just told me to keep doing what I was already doing. And with how many of the other mini-boss gold gems are found by parrying a specific or unobvious attack, it's easy to start looking for something that isn't going to happen. This one here, for example, you have to grab this big laser beam straight out of the air. Not the most obvious thing to do in this boss fight, so there you go. There's a gold gem as a reward for figuring it out. And who's to say maybe they did this on purpose, you know, making some of them more obvious and some of them less obvious, just to play with me, to make me overthink things sometimes, but I don't know, I still think they needed some sort of feedback to let me know that I was, in fact, in the right direction. This mole boss here I had a similar problem with, but it was a little better. I was at least able to figure it out. You gotta jump on his stomach after you knock him over, which, like, yeah, sure, he does react, so maybe there's something here, but again, you have to do it so many times that I could easily see people needing a guide to realize that they are, in fact, doing the right thing. Some of the stage gold gems can also be a little bit cryptic. This one here is actually kind of cool. You have to find this hidden platform down here, just below view. Shake this clan ball, and a bomb will drop, destroying the footing. That's not what we want, though. We want to grab it before it makes contact. Use it up on this side, and then we can grab the clan pot. Now, you might not know what to do with this because there's nothing to put in it, but you think, well, maybe there's something already in it. Shake it up, and it's already got 3 clancers, which combine into a giant jetpack clancer that you grab and fly around with. Jet up to the stars, and you can find it up there. It's a little hard to find, but it's worth it because it's satisfying and rewarding. But some of these are just plain evil, man, and not in the way you'd even think. I'm not talking hard to find. I'm not talking annoying to get. I'm talking multi-layered psychological trickery baloney that I don't think any other game's ever frickin' done to me in my life. So I'm talking about this one here. They have all of these little hints about what to do, right? This guy here is immediately in danger. He's gonna die if you don't do anything. But this guy here, he's safe on the green block. So you put 2 and 2 together. Oh, I see. I totally have to save all of these guys. That's the optional thing here. That's the secret goal. Okay, so first one's easy. Chuck them in. Oh, nice of them to make this thing hook in like that. Yeah, these are absolutely what these are for. Another guy, easy. But oh man, that last one, this last dude, he's a fickle cactus, just prickly. Atch, how do you do this? I keep dying, I keep chucking them, and I keep falling. You gotta, okay, you have to wait for them to get destroyed, and, okay, I see what you have to do. You have to toss it over there. It's just hard as shit. And since this one's at the very end, you have to do the whole level over again to get another shot every time. But hey, after enough tries, I finally get it. Yes! And nothing changes. Nothing's different. You don't get anything. I was like, what? Where is there? Did I get a gold gem? I didn't get a gold gem. So I watched the footage back. There's nothing. This does nothing. That's not what you do at all. No, you have to wait here. You wait right here. Yeah, wait until they blow up. Grab this guy, shake, and then a new round sphere ball appears at the end of the stage. You shake that guy, and yeah, there it is. It's right there. I almost can't believe that. I almost can't even believe that. You know, I've never had a game prank me quite like this before. And you know what it is? It's because this game has that, like, really efficient, non-verbal teaching game design that's just so good at getting the player to figure out what to do. Because, I mean, think about it. This game looks like fucking nonsense. It looks like nonsense. It should be strange and unfamiliar, but just because the game uses these simple, consistent rules that are so easy to understand, they can get you to figure out what to do just by putting the right things on screen every time. And they know that they can do that. So they're like, hey, what if we made it look like you had to do something completely useless and wasted people's time? They use that game design to create a red herring as like a practical joke. That is bananas to me, and you know what? I'm kind of annoyed. I'm kind of annoyed that I wasted so much of my time just figuring out that there's nothing here. But I am thoroughly entertained by the fact that they would do this, so I love this. That's amazing. Oh no, okay, time for the real jerk one. You know the one thing in the game that's just too stupidly annoying to get or bother doing, and you're gonna give up, but you're not. You're not, because it's the one thing you have left, and you're gonna do it until you go nuts. The funny games, remember this level? Well, there's a gold gem in it for you if you can beat that first 100-meter dash event. Under 11 seconds. And they mean under. If that number says 11, it doesn't count. You can go get lost. It has to say 10. You have to start mashing, super duper mashing that D-pad the very freaking moment, that signal goes off. If you're shy just a hair, you're gonna be shy just a hair. Okay, this time. Oh, sorry, idiot, you hit the button too soon. You have to be so close to when they say go that this is going to start happening over and over until you're doing it too late again. It was pretty much just flipping back between those two things for way too long. This took me an hour of trying over and over to get this. And I know what you're thinking, the boss fights also took you an hour. The boss fights were fun. Now, these things, you practice them until you've mastered them, and that's really fun to do. This isn't that. This isn't fun. This is just a part of the game that's meant to piss you off. And that's precisely how I felt, too. I felt pissed off. I felt pissed off. It felt random. It felt random. It didn't even feel like it was up to me. It felt like it was just in the hands of the universe, whether or not this was going to be the run where the two neurons in my brain connect like 2 milliseconds faster enough to get it. Just rolling the dice over and over until... Yay, yeah, there it is, there's the one. Give me that gold gem, please, thank you. I'm not even happy about it, I'm just thankful it's over. Luckily, there aren't really any other gold gems that are particularly terrible. These are all the worst ones to get. And now we have every single one, so let's see that full ending. Here's the chance to skip if you want to. After all the drama between the Clancers, Marina and the Professor head back to their spaceship house thing and depart the planet of Clancer. And of course, the entire planet has the face. I do not know how I didn't see that coming. And with 23 gold gems still strong, we tank through the entire credits, and we get a hidden scene. This elder wizard Clancer dude visits each of the robot hero henchmen guys and transforms each one back into their true human forms. Which they apparently have. Yeah, baby, I'm back. Now we can return to being the original Beastector. Whoa, this is my true body. It's so beautiful. Star Wars text, really? Okay, well I guess this was back before it was like a super overdone thing. I mean, hell, Windows Movie Maker wasn't even out yet. And with the timer down to only 4 gems, the wizard visits the house and asks, "Do you also wish to be human, Marina?" He messes up at first, though. Oh my god, imagine being like 2 gems shy and you barely don't get to see the ending. Imagine seeing, like Dragon Ball Z, imagine seeing the messed up Gotenks, but then your VCR broke before you could see the actual Gotenks. It's at the very end, so you really need every gem to even get a glimpse of it, but Marina is turned into a human. Pretty cool thing to hide here at the end, even if it is kind of nonsensical, but, you know, that's Mischief Makers for you. Also, one last little tidbit about this ending. Remember when the game asked for our age? I was wondering about that the whole game, but it turns out if we typed in 16 or younger, during this scene, Marina will be a kid instead of an adult. Just a neat little detail. As far as I know, that's the only thing this changes. Apparently, there's also a slight difference to the ending scene if you get every A rank in the game, but this video's taken way too long to make, so I think I'll can it right here. Surely it's online if you care to see it, or you could challenge yourself and unlock it fair and square. And that just about does it. Mischief Makers 4, the N64. I gotta say, pretty damn cool game, this one. You know, they really catch you with the cuteness, and then they reel you in with all the weirdness, but it's the game mechanics you really end up staying for. It's just such a unique playing game that it really makes no wonder that all the people who grew up with the game, or even played it later in life, they still talk about it like it was one of the coolest things they ever got to try. To this day, you can still see a lot of love for this game all over the internet. I've seen Marina pop up so many times over the years. I mean, even recently they put her in that Smash 64 remix ROM hack that adds so many characters and stuff to the game. They even made her a whole character sheet and everything. She's absolutely a character that has stuck with people for a long time, and I really think that is saying something because the only other game she has ever appeared in was when Treasure put her in their PS1 fighting game, Rakugaki Showtime, which was a really cute game, all hand-drawn with crayons and stuff. Wish it was in Japan only, because this is the exact kind of creativity Treasure was known for. And yes, I only know this because of the character sheet that was just in front of me 2 seconds ago. You caught me red-handed. Pretty wild you can get this thing running off of a real N64. Ooh, like the authenticity, dude. It really does feel like she always belonged, like the game deserved better. More love for more people back then. I mean, the effort put into making her really feel like she was always here, I think that's emblematic of how much this game really did stand out to the people who did play it. Goemon 2, I really gotta play those ones someday. And it's also interesting to me too, because I feel like so many N64 platformers are these cool ideas that I often end up wishing for a better version of someday, like Chameleon Twist or Space Station Silicon Valley. And sometimes you do see a new game take those ideas and flesh them out into a much better thing, which is awesome. But Mischief Makers is so not that situation. Not only do I think all of this holds up incredibly well, but it's still pretty damn unique. I can't think of very many other games that have made this much out of a single grab mechanic, let alone pair it with these fun movement options that feel so different than anything else. Though I have seen some indie games on the horizon aiming to capture this whole kind of thing too, so definitely keep an eye on those if you like this sort of thing. I almost thought people really just liked this thing for the anime robot made, but no, I can personally attest to how impressive this thing really is. It is a playground of interesting moves that are not only fun to use in a vacuum, but they actually have all of the inventive level design that's constantly getting new things out of it. Mischief Makers is such a cool freaking game. It is weird and silly and strange, and it is just as clever as it is odd. It's an absolute crime that there's nowhere, as of this video, that you can easily get it. At the very least, Nintendo needs to get this on Nintendo Switch Online, though I do think it would be a lot better to have a full-on re-release on all platforms. But yeah, until then, if that ever happens, you'll have to either get a physical copy, or, you know, I mean, hey, I don't want Mario to bust my door down and tear my asshole out of my dick, so I can't condone anything. But all I'm saying is when consumerism fails to preserve the things we care about, it's just in the hands of the people to do so, that's all. Treasure hasn't made anything since like 2014, so I have no idea what the people from that company are up to. I do know a lot of those guys in Japan stay within the industry though, especially when they're passionate ones. And games like this do not come from people that don't have passion. So I could see it floating onto a digital storefront someday. You know, somebody out there has to cobble the rights together in some way, but I'm just saying I wouldn't entirely count on it. But either way, I would absolutely recommend the hell out of this game. Mostly to people that love snappy and challenging 2D side-scrollers, because 100%ing this game is a really fun and unique challenge. And I would also recommend it to people that just want to play it for the weirdness and the comedy and the quirkiness too, because just going through the main story and not 100%ing it, pretty easy to do casually, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. But yeah, it's certainly one of the most unique games I've ever played, and since it was also really fun on top of that too, probably gonna remember this thing forever. And it's pretty nice that that memory is finally something a lot more than just seeing it on the shelf and wondering what the hell it was. Didn't I tell you to clean your freaking room? Go grab a broom, or the vacuum, and subscribe to the Nitro Rad $1 podcast. For $1 a month, you can hear me and Brady talk about Pikmin.
I'm the fuckeroni!